Okay, for the needle bearings around the shaft, you'll need two of these right here. So that's one, and here's the other one. And just like I said before, test them to see which side rolls the best. This side seems to not roll that good. These two sides seem to roll pretty good. So I'm gonna see. I'm gonna get the first flat needle bearing here, and if you can see here, that seems to be a capture groove, sort of, because on the other side it's metal, so I'm gonna assume that this is actually its capture groove. So I forgot which way it goes on. I think it goes towards the race, which means towards the gear. So I think it's like this. And I'm just gonna double check to see if this is clean. And then I'll lubricate this. Because I think it's more important for the gear to spin and have more friction on this side. I'm being actually super picky, but I think that makes sense. So here's the two. And so this needle bearing, that inner part, that actually kind of becomes the race for these two. So I'm going to test that first one. And it kind of binds a lot. So I'm going to lubricate this. And I've determined that this side of this bearing is the smoothest spinning, and this side of this bearing is the smoothest spinning, and in the middle has more friction than these two sides, because I think they spin together. I'm being really super picky, but that's what I'm doing. Okay, so next thing to do is I'm gonna clean the inside race, and then I'll lubricate it. I use brake cleaner and a paper towel, and it looks pretty good. So I think it goes in this way. because here's the ledge and here's the long part, so that's where these two double needle bearings go into, and it gets stopped here at the ledge. See that ledge? It gets stopped there. So we're going to lubricate that. And then we're going to lubricate here. Just be really gentle. Okay, so that's good. And then the next thing is this, and like I said, actually this is the old one. So the one that's got a capture groove it's gonna be this side, because this outer part, that actually is the capture groove, but it doesn't look like it's got that much. See, there's only that center channel inside the bearing. This one's basically got two channels on both ends, so that's gonna go against the gear. So here's the side with the capture grooves, and it goes against the gear, and we're going to lubricate that first. Okay, so here's with the most lubrication. I want that towards the gear. And the last thing is it's going to be the splined washer, and like I said, the chamfered part goes into it, and then this part sticks outwards. So I'll add oil here. And it spins pretty good. So the last thing that we need to do is add both of these into, there's a groove right here, and so I think it goes in there. There's another groove here, I'll double check, but I think it's the very first groove. So it's going to be the first groove, and then the second groove is going to be the circlip. So I see that this side has a worn shiny side in the middle, so I think that sticks outwards, and this side looks perfect. So it goes right into its groove like that, and you should be able to spin it. So what that actually is is it's not just a washer. It's basically like a circlip, and then its retainer holds that circlip together. And this retainer doesn't look like it's worn out. I don't see any wear marks, so it's doing its job, and I can reuse this. So here's the second part, and I can see that there's a wear mark in the inside, so that points out. And then we're going to put this retainer inside. And I'm going to make sure that that's clean. All right. So we're going to put that in. There's a lot of paper pieces on here. So we'll put that in. And it goes right over those two split washers or split retainers. And then the only thing that we have to do next is put the circlip back in. So you're just going to spread this, and then you're going to put it over. There's a groove right in front of the groove for that retainer. So the first groove was for the split washer or split retainer rings, and then the groove right in front of it is for the circlip. And also I noticed that the circlip, when I took it out, it was kind of crooked, so I just bent it back in place, and now it's pretty good. Yeah, what's really bad about the circlip is that you have to bend it more than you should just to get over this race here. And that was why it was getting warped up. So just spin this to double check. But that's in. And then next we're going to replace these. So for these fiber seals, you only need 3 of them. That's the part number. And they probably should just pry apart. So here's how they work. just like that. Probably best to push them together before you put them in. Yep, that way it pushes together when you put it in. And if you don't want to mess up your new one, practice with your old one. Yeah, now it holds together pretty good. So just push them in a little bit. Don't overdo it. Here's this next one. Just make sure that they don't accidentally go like that. Here's the third one. Okay, then I'm gonna clean up all of these. Okay, so here's the first one. And I'm gonna try to push this in just a little bit. That actually didn't do anything. So I'm just gonna try to install this. These aren't metal, so I'm not worried about it scratching this race right here. So there's the first one. And I'm just being careful not to overstretch it because I don't want this to break or get weak. There's the second one. And I noticed there's actually like little kind of grooves here cut along. These little grooves in here to hold oil, I think. So it's all along there and on the other side too. So this is the last one. And that's the last one. Right, and this should be done. It's really important. I just realized this is third clutch, and this O-ring that I put on here at the top, there's no way that this can be right. It goes inside this piston here. So don't make this mistake that I did. I'm going to take this out, and you're going to have to take this piston off. So I just turned this upside down and I patted it into actually my thigh, and that got the piston out. So I'm going to lubricate this O-ring here, and I can't believe I actually did this. That didn't even make any sense to put it on top like that. Okay, so its actual location, well, here's the big one. That was the obvious one. The location for this is right inside there. Right there. So you should be able to do it from the top. And I'm going to clean this out first. Okay, so just fit it under here. And you see how it kind of bulges out like that? You have to force it in, hold these two right here, then force that in. Okay, yeah, that actually looks right. So there's where the O-ring is supposed to go. Okay, now I'm gonna have to reassemble everything, put this back in, put the spring back on using the clamp thing that I showed you, and then put the disc back in. Alright, this is actually first and second clutch drum, and I was having a hard time getting this piston out. And the trick is, if it gets stuck, then all you have to do is take your air compressor, let it build up to 120 psi, and then stick your air nozzle into that hole right there, and just look around, because there's more holes. Just keep pushing into that. I used that first hole all the way around, so that one and this one. So I don't know what the middle one or the other end must be for the piston for the other side. But I used the hole closest to this piston, and that's how I blew this thing out. Might still be stuck, but I saw it come out. Alright, so I realized that first hole, the one closest to this side, that first hole, it comes out right there. So there's another hole right here. And so that's why if you blow on that first hole, you'll blow out the piston if it gets stuck here. Alright, so I'm working on second gear, and second gear is the smaller one. So these are the plates, the steel plates for second gear. And I think you need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plates. And I'll be putting in the Raybestos GPX frictions. So they're here. And so basically how it works is I'm actually cleaning them in the ATF first. I'm cleaning up the surface and flipping it over and cleaning up the other surface. And then I'm going to keep it all the same direction, because there's one side that's smooth and one side that's flatter, because these are stamped. So this is the flatter side, and this is the smooth side, because they would have stamped it from this side. That's why this side's more rounded. So I'm going to put the first one down, and this one doesn't have a spring. This groove looks like it could be for a spring, but it's not. I think this might be the only clutch that doesn't have a spring. Okay. The next piece is going to be a disc, and a disc is the actual clutch disc. So I don't know if you can see it, but it says Raybestos here. It's printed in black ink, or maybe it's not ink, it's something else. But I'm going to go with the printed side facing up. So that's my first one. And what I did was I actually tested this to see which side was flatter, and both sides seem to be about as flat. This shouldn't be that important because they should be flat on both sides, but it's just something picky that I'm doing. So all of the stamped steel plates are going to be the rounded side facing this way and the flat side on the bottom, and the printed clutch disc, the printed side facing up. And one more really important thing is, originally the transmissions that failed, some of them had they had steel plates that were really rough, and I've checked these are actually pretty smooth, so I think these are the updated ones. These are like, I wouldn't say mirror finish, but close enough. A lot, it's not rough anyways. Alright, first and second gear is the most complicated gear in the entire transmission. And the smaller one is actually second gear, and it's fairly straightforward. There's a piston, and I haven't installed the spring, but there's a spring just like any other clutch, and there's 6 steel plates and 6 friction disc. So that's more than normal. That's like 1 extra plate and disc extra. But what makes this really complicated is it's not even referred as first gear. It's referred as low hold and low gear. So this is low hold, and this is low. So not low gear, it's just called low. And its O-ring system is also really complicated. These two in here, they look like they're identical, but they're not. One of them, I think the one underneath is 1 millimeter bigger than the top one, or something like that. So every O-ring, even though they look similar, they're different. That's a different part number, and the part numbers are also really similar. Like these two part numbers, they're off by just 1 number. So at first I thought I had like 3 of the same O-rings, but it's not. There's an O-ring on the outside just like every other one. But this one's special because it's the only one that has 2 O-rings on the inside. This one has an O-ring on the inside and on the outside, and it's also a lot thinner than most of them. So make sure you triple check all the part numbers, because sometimes they're off by just 1 number, and sometimes they're off by 2 letters. So, and also this, how I got this one off and this one off. I think I first blew air into this first hole right here, and then I blew air into the second hole. I think that's how I got the second, or the low hold clutch out. And actually after I did that, it was actually stuck on here. So what I had to do is, if you see here, you can stick your pick under here. And so I lifted up here, moved it, lifted it, kept doing it all the way across until I finally got it out. And then I just tapped it onto my my thigh upside down, and then that's how I got this one out.